3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, where we explore strategies for training, competing, and well-being shared through experiences from some of the sharpest minds in the fitness space. Now, welcome your host, Micah Shoemaker.
Good morning. I'm joined by Elle in his beautiful aura of nature and fountains and birds. So if you hear some nature sounds, it's because Elle is one with nature this morning. What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good. Man, you sound so much more lively than the other podcasts we've done. Maybe because I buttered you up before we got on here.
No, it's because it's 7 a.m. and not 6 p.m. Like that's way too close to my bedtime.
Before we came on, Elle and I were talking about our wake up procedures. I don't know if that's the right term, but anyways, the point was I was telling him that I enjoy waking up to the sound of birds in the morning, and it's something about being grounded in nature. And it was a bunch of hippie shit I was talking about. Anyways, he was like, "Yeah, I don't have that luxury. I get up at 3 a.m." Oh God, it just sounds wrong. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right.
It's not.
And look,
it's not for everybody.
And look,
like,
I got up at 4 for 5 years, but not 3.
Yeah, it's like I try to change up my schedule, and this is just how it works best. I can get most of my programming done before 7 a.m. and then that leaves me with a bunch of time for consults and other projects and stuff. So this is it. This is my life.
Fair enough. Alrighty. So what prompted this conversation? And maybe we'll have a guest join us, maybe not. Surprise! Was a clip of a podcast from, you know what, I'm going to stop butchering the name of this podcast because if I'm going to use it, I'm going to at least give them credit. The Upside Strength Podcast with OPEX founder, I guess maybe CEO, I don't know. Anyways, James Fitzgerald. And it was very interesting because it was something that you and I had been talking about just kind of personally in our personal conversations, had nothing to do with the podcast. And then it just kind of, one thing led to another, and all of a sudden we're here talking about it. And not that this is the only thing we're going to talk about, but it's something that's interesting. It's something that I think a lot of people listening can get a lot of value from, because most people listening are in the sport of CrossFit, and the answer to a lot of people's questions around, how strong do I need to be? How much capacity do I need to have? All of those things. James, in a weird way, answers that. And so the podcast host asked James Fitzgerald, how much harder can it get? How much harder can the sport of CrossFit get? And he gave an answer that really I was not expecting. He gave an answer that was, in the best James fashion, so articulate, yet so mind-boggling that it took a few times listening to it. But essentially, he said that it appears, at least, that we're reaching the upper limits of what the sport is and has to offer in terms of physical feats and capabilities. And not that there aren't outliers, people deadlifting 700 pounds and stupid shit like that, because every year in the Open or the quarterfinals, we see something just stupid. But for the most part, we're reaching the upper limits of that. And this was where it really made me interested, was he said for the sport to advance, now of course he has a little bit of an interest in that, and maybe we get into that, maybe we don't, but in order for the sport to advance, that there really needs to be more of an amortization of the sport. And what I mean by that is more competitions and less intensity, in a very just simple, articulate way. And so I'm gonna let you take it from here, but I wanted to at least give the folks listening some context behind that clip before we jump into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think if you look at the higher level athletes, most of those competitions aren't that intense for them, right? Like you have the one big competition like the games where they have to like really prep and get ready for. But at that level, like let's say the people who are top 30 in the world, they can go compete every weekend and keep it pretty lower intensity, right? Like they don't have to push so deep into their nervous system to win those competitions, especially if they're doing it every weekend. Naturally, they're just going to hold back a little bit. They're not going to give everything they got. I think it's important to like define like what does harder mean? Like harder for the athlete, harder for the coaches, is the programming, like the difficulty of the movements. Like I think it's important to like define that, because if you don't have like a definition for what harder is, like it could just be that there's just more events packed under a shorter time domain, right? So they had 15 events at the games this year. Like, are they going to try to cram 20 next year, right? Like in that case, that would be harder. That would be harder.
Yeah, I see where you're going.
So I think for me, like the game, as far as like human potential, I totally agree with that, right? Like some of the numbers that the upper level athletes are putting up are getting very close to the athletes who are specializing, right? So take Tia Toomey being able to represent her entire country in the Olympics in weightlifting. I see that's an example of someone that's an elite weightlifter if she wanted to be an elite weightlifter. And then I'm sure if she wanted to be like a 10K runner or a 5K runner, she could potentially be elite at that as well. So the closer we get to like the athletes that are specializing in specific sports, and then you take that and put it in one package in one athlete, meaning they could potentially be at the Olympics for weightlifting and at the Olympics for a marathon, right? Like I got it. Putting that into one athlete, I think that's kind of where we're going as a sport in general. And it's like you're good at everything and you're very close to elite at most things.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm tracking with you now. Well, and I don't want to derail this conversation but when I was talking to Brian Friend last week, who's a brilliant guy and a data analyst, really, he was saying that the events, like if you look at the career, because we're on Tia Toomey, if you look at the career of Tia Toomey, one of the things that she does, and I don't want to pigeonhole her because she's obviously the fittest woman to ever do it, but one of the things that, as you're comparing her career to Matt's career, that he said that Matt tended to consistently win we'll call it the CrossFit stuff, or as if James were on here, he would call it mixed modal because he wouldn't say CrossFit. But anyways, I'm preparing for that interview, guys. Spoiler alert: James is coming.
So petty.
But I have to do my homework first. Anyways, excuse me. So this was interesting. What Brian said. He said Tia tended to win the runs, like the very. So for those listening, not mixed modal. So we're talking just single modality. Okay, the runs, the swims, the bikes, and the weightlifting, right? And she would. And we're talking about event wins. We're not talking about just like top three. Like obviously she's getting top 3, top 5, and all, and most of those, right? Anyways, it was fascinating as you started to look at her career versus Matt's and see the difference there of specifically event wins. Anyways, I don't want to again derail. I just thought that was an interesting point, and you were referring to that here a second ago. So back to your point though, is these people are elite. And they could potentially go to in her case, the Olympics for that modality, for that sport. And he makes an interesting, comparison. He says, look at the Olympic bobsled teams. He said, if I asked you who is on the Olympic bobsled team, you couldn't answer me, You wouldn't know. And if you,
but
oh my gosh, you're that guy. L's like, I could tell you he was on the Quidditch team and the badminton team and all the swimming teams.
I love sports, but go ahead.
Anyways, most people, okay, there we go. Most people couldn't name them, and yet, if you would talk to those people and say, what do you do for a living? Well, they're going to tell you, I do this bobsled thing, but because I'm not pro, and let's define pro because we're about to throw it around. I would consider pro you being able to make money, live off of it, and like actually have a living, right? Like you're not doing anything else. This is what you do. Most of them would say, "Oh, I'm a real estate agent," or "Oh, I'm a whatever." And he says essentially that you have these CrossFitters that because CrossFit, like, let's go ahead and define it. CrossFit is a pain sport. CrossFit is an endurance sport. And so you've got these CrossFitters that also do these other jobs, whatever, real estate agent, work at a packaging store, whatever the case is. And they're doing it for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and they're doing 9 to 5. But they're also having to train, 5 hours a day because that's just, that's what you got to do. It's where the sport is. Yet people are getting burned out. And I'm sure you see that because you coach a lot of people. And my guess is, well, I'll ask the question, are most of the people that you coach full-time athletes?
Very few. Very few are full-time athletes. And to me, like, I think most people have something that they do outside of training, whether that's work with athletes remotely or they might have like an online program that they sell. Like they have something that outside of fitness that brings them money, right? Like they might own a gym or something along those lines. And I think that just comes organically. Like you just have more opportunities for a little bit extra and to like profit off of your image. But I would say if you're not getting top 10 at the games or even top 20, unless you're just like extremely blessed with like an amazing support system, meaning you're married to somebody that makes a ton of money where you don't have to contribute as much, or you're making sacrifices, you're living with your parents so like you don't have as many bills, most people tend to have a job, right? And it's what I'm finding out is like fitness doesn't correlate to sponsorships, right? Like you need to have a brand. Just because you're fitter, there's people that are really, really fit and don't get the sponsorships just because they're not marketable. So you have to be marketable. You can be unfit and make a great living and then some if you're marketable. So I think for a lot of the athletes, and this is probably the same with like other sports like track and field or people that run marathons or swimmers, like there's not a ton of athletes that are getting those huge sponsorship deals to where they can afford to like not have a job.
I was talking to Ashley. Ashley's my wife, for those that don't know. And one of the guys, I believe, either she ran with or she coached at Sanford. Anyways, my wife is a track and field coach. And anyways, he makes it to, I want to say the Olympics in track and field. And he posted this picture, and it was like a jab at influencers. And I thought it was hilarious because he was basically outlining what you were just saying. Is here I am in the top of what my sport currently has to offer, the Olympics. And I think he works like a construction job. Anyways, he posted a picture of like these old raggedy like Nike Pegasus shoes, these like tattered shorts, and was like, you can get these for, on clearance at $19.99 at Kohl's,
Yeah.
And kind of making a jab at it. And I thought it was funny, but there's so much truth to what you just said. It's one, are you marketable? And two, does the eyeballs on you support the marketing dollars that are going to be potentially poured into you? And if the answer is no, that they do not, well, guess what? You ain't going to get no money. There was a young lady who pursuing CrossFit in her teens, and we sat down for coffee, and she was like, hey, I want to do this full time. Okay. I want to pursue CrossFit full time. Right now, I go to school and I have this, on the side gig, and I want to do it full time. What do I need to do? And I think here's where the problem lies. Culturally, we're told, hey, if you can dream it, you can do it. Sounds like some Nickelodeon ad. The reality is, while I do believe in the American dream, while I do believe that if you work hard consistently, that it may, pay off, there is no way of knowing. There is no certainty in life. There is no way I can tell you, if you work for 8 years, you're going to do this thing. It's like, no. There is a little bit of luck. There is a little bit of, coincidence. There is a little bit of all these things happening. And what I told her was, I was like, okay, the money isn't in winning. I'll just tell you that right now. Like the money isn't winning the CrossFit Games. I mean, sure, there is money, but the money is all is the sponsorships. The money is the eyeballs, right? So what does that look like? That looks like posting on Instagram, right? Documenting your journey, doing YouTube videos. And I'm not saying they need to look like the Buttery Bros videos, but they need to look like, hey, I give a shit, and I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to film this, splice this video together on my free, movie app on my phone or on my computer, and put a soundtrack to it and freaking put it on Instagram or whatever, or YouTube, but yet people don't want to do that because it takes work.
But see, to me, the question is like, you have to get back to what is it that you want? Like, do you want to make this a career, or do you want to be the best athlete, right? Because those are two different things. Yes, they can kind of like intertwine, but usually they're pretty exclusive, right? Like,
agree.
If I have an athlete that's trying to be the best, they could care less about posting on Instagram. Like, that's the last thing on their mind. Yes, they'll do it because it's like correlated to them being able to do this and being better at this. It's like, if I post on my Instagram, I get money, so now I don't need a job and I can train more, right? Like, and that will lead me to being the best. So they're intertwined in that way, but like, fundamentally, it's not the same thing. Wanting more followers and wanting to make a living out of this is not correlated to fitness. And you just have to get very clear about like what it is that you want. Because if you want the followers, then focus on marketing. Post 2-3 times a day. You can still train to get better and all that, but like, your vision just has to be clear.
Damn, that's good. And y'all, this is why we have Elle on here. He gives the other side of the fence in such an eloquent way. I always appreciate your insight. Look, there's more money now than there ever has been in the sport. No doubt about it. And there's more opportunities because of social media than there ever has been to date in the sport. And though I see where you're coming from, there are athletes that go, hey, I want to be the best. I don't really care about social media. And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I think it's worth bringing up. Isn't that just kind of a like an entry point? Like, you just have to do it. And maybe the answer is you say, nah, you really don't. But and maybe it's just, hey, I just want to be the best, and then I want to get out, and F it, I don't really care. But it seems like it's short-sighted. This is my thoughts. It's short-sighted if you don't put energy and effort into that, because it's going to. Yeah, and let's take a 10,000 foot view up here. It's not just social media. I think it's also like legacy. It's also down the road. This has nothing to do with the here and now. It's when I'm out of this thing, because let's be real, the life cycle on this thing is probably, I don't know, depending on when you get in it, 8 to 10 years, something like that. Not very long. When down the road, it's just my thoughts. That's so important. And maybe you don't care about doing CrossFit down the road. Maybe it's just whatever, my gym. I want to sell my widget. Whatever. My programming. I don't know. I mean, obviously the best to ever do it has been Rich Froning.
I think it's I think if you are good enough, those are going to come organically. Like the eyes, you're winning the game. So a good example of that is Guillermo Maieros. I hope I didn't butcher his name. The super strong kid from Brazil. Did I butcher his name?
No, I don't believe so. I wouldn't have said it better, so that's why I'm just agreeing with you. You didn't butcher his name. I'm just like, yes, him.
Fun fact, I used to speak Portuguese. Can't speak a word now. But anyway.
That's interesting.
All those events, so I think he won like 3 or 4 events at the games. Just because he won those events, he gained like 20,000 followers on Instagram. That's considerable, right? Like that's a huge chunk that he gained just by doing well at the games. And it's like, if you keep doing that, the followers will come organically. You'll get the sponsorships. But I think it's interesting because I think winning will set you up for more opportunities. I don't know if that's true. I was going to use Rich Froning as an example. Like, because he won, people believe in Mayhem. And because Mayhem athletes have been successful, they're more likely to trust Mayhem programming, right? But at the same time, you have other athletes on the other side of it that have never made it to the games, but are very successful just because they're very marketable.
Lauren Fisher. Well, she's made it to the games, but it's
that's a bad example.
No, I don't. No. Here's why. No, just
at one point.
Go ahead.
Lauren Fisher was considered the future of CrossFit, so you can't even put her. Like, the people I'm talking about are like, they've never made it to the games, but they have like 1 million or 500,000 followers on Instagram. They make like $100K a year on sponsorships alone.
Who are these people? Because I want to go DM them right now.
Who's one?
Like, can you just give me one? That's impressive.
Josie Hamming, I think, is her name.
Oh, yep. The only place I've ever seen her is on like Del Spiegel's stories. But yes, I know who you're talking about.
I think she's a regional athlete and just never made it to the games. I don't know her, so I'm not gonna say anything bad or
that's
something
fair.
wrong.
No.
But she's very marketable. I don't know how much money she makes. It looks like she makes a bunch of money. She has her own line with Born Primitive. So that's like 2 examples. So I don't know if you have that example on the guy side though.
Well, I saw this thing on Instagram. It was horrible. Oh my God. It was borderline sexist. Might get canceled for saying this, but it's okay. We're going to say it. So anyways, it's this just okay, go with me, guys. Go with me. Just zone in. Go with me. It was this stick figure drawing. It was image A, and then beside it was image B. It was this stick figure drawing of some waves, like some water, and someone drew an orange sun, colored it in with Crayola markers. It's beautiful. Okay, not really. All right. The stick figure on image A was what could clearly be defined as a man with, and anybody will say, how do you know? It's it was a man, and they posted his little hairy legs, right? Little dots for hairy legs, right? And then the other one looked like the exact same image, except the person, the stick figure drawing was of a woman. and it said image A of the man was 26 likes. Image B was 2,600 likes because one was of a almost naked woman and the other was of a hairy man. The point is, I believe in a lot of the fitness world because, like, it's just real. Because people sexualize these figures, it just is what it is. If you don't believe me, you go watch Del Spiegel's stories. There's plenty of it. And I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying it happens. All right? I don't think it's right. But I don't want to just, put my head under the covers and go, it doesn't happen. Like, at some point, we have to face the music. It happens, people. So I do think there is a level that the female side of things is a little bit more marketable than these dudes. I just think, and I think it goes far beyond just sexualization and stuff like that. I think it's a little bit something, nature over nurture. Like there's some of that going on. I think there's a few things in there that really drive that, not just from like a hedonistic standpoint, but from like a biological standpoint. Like as humans, we just, whether it's mother figures or whatever, like we just kind of tend to relate a little bit better. But not to get off on a tangent on that, I just think that it's just a little bit easier for those, females to get, those sponsorships. And if you look at it, a lot of the brands, especially the clothing brands, look, people, go into Lululemon. There's a reason that it's 80-20. What do I mean by that? 80% of the shit in there is women's stuff. 20% of the shit shoved in the corner is the men's stuff. Go to any Lululemon. Okay? And I'm not saying I've been to all of them, but I've been to at least 20. At least 20. That's conservative. Okay? Right? Because they know their market. They just do. Right? That market's so much bigger for a female than it is a male. And it just is what it is. So, anyways, not to get off on a tangent. I think
we have to get to a point where athletes are making more from competition than from sponsorships, right? And I don't even think that will ever happen because I'll give you like LeBron's Nike deal is way more money than his salary from the Lakers, right?
Oh yeah.
Like Cristiano Ronaldo, who's the most followed athlete on Instagram, makes more for posting a brand on Instagram than he does playing soccer, right? Mm-hmm. So I think for a sport like CrossFit, the gap has to get closer to where more athletes are afforded more opportunities to make money outside of just sponsorships for it to get to a point where you have like 200, 300 athletes that can consider themselves professionals. And I think that's all it needs to be. Like we don't need to make 1,000 athletes professionals. Like the top 300 is like about as deep as the pro pool should get. And I think there needs to be something like a pro card, like you've competed in these competitions and you've done well.
I like it.
You're officially a pro, and you perform bad. Your pro card has been revoked. You suck. But with your pro card, I don't know. You get like $50,000 a year. I don't know where that money's coming from. So
I love this. No, this is great. And look, I like that you brought it back here. Seriously, no, I really do, because this is if for those watching, if you watch the clip that we were speaking of at the very beginning, this is kind of where he takes it, which is that we have to get to the point where there are more competitions, but they're less intense, because what's happening is the games is setting this standard, and the standard is. I used this example last week because I think it's fitting. It's the Hunger Games, right? The more sacrificial it is, the more entertaining it is. It's sick, but it's true. Okay? Because you watch it and you're like, fuck, I could never do that. Like, look at these dudes going to come down on their neck, these handstand push-ups. Unbelievable. Martha, you wouldn't do that, would you? Yeah, right. Okay. This is Ooh, I think I just stereotyped somebody from the Midwest. Anyways.
Sounded like Alabama.
Fair enough. Well, I am from Alabama, so I can stereotype my own people. Okay. I am one of them. I live among them. Anyway, I do think that this is where it needs to go, but it's not sexy, right? No one wants, and the example he used, and I'll use it here because I think it's a good one. No one wants to watch all right, here you go. Imagine this. Imagine turning on ESPN and you see 40 guys lined up on a rower and they're doing a max 3K row. Not interesting. You know what's interesting, though? Freestanding handstand push-ups. That's what's interesting, right? So I love what you just said because I agree with what you just said and I've been about this from day one that I've had the opportunity to speak on this platform, is there does need to be more professionalization of sport. And oftentimes I think that does come with or is attached to or is correlated to a level of financial compensation. And I'm not saying maybe it's 50, maybe it's 25, maybe it's 30, but I do love your idea of the pro card. And it's like, okay, how do we do this? And I think a lot of it is there could be more competitions and it's like, okay, Micah, I don't know about this. Like we tried this, the sanctional thing. I actually think the sanctional thing was decent. Now, where I didn't like it, so here we go. The sanctional thing to qualify to the CrossFit Games, I don't know if that worked. But I think making it more like golf would be a good idea. Like how they kind of structure their season and their kind of competitions. Like, sure, there are certain tournaments that are bigger than others and have bigger prize purses than others. This is going to be very sacrilegious, what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it because I believe in it. We need to lessen that of the CrossFit Games. And I think the only, just real quick, I think the only way to do that is to have other competitions like we saw in the past, whether it's Wadapalooza or Dubai, that have these large prize purses. And that people can get to. And then you can have that circuit of, like, to your idea, I love the pro card idea, but I think it starts with probably lessening the CrossFit Games. It's like, sure, there are certain, again, tournaments in golf that are bigger than others, right, that have bigger prize purses than others, but, it's not one of those situations where it's like, hey, we're just gonna have this one big competition and that's all we're gonna have all year. It's like, no, there's several along the way that also have those purses and that notoriety.
Something we talked about in our coaches meeting was basically changing up the format of the games, right? So you had sanctionals, and sanctionals was chaotic for a coach, right? Like,
agreed.
You just had athletes competing all the time, which in a way isn't wrong for the right athletes, right? Like if you're developing, probably don't need to compete as much, probably need to train more. If you're a little bit more seasoned, you can handle all those competitions. So moving the games to like every other year versus every year. So now you have like a 2-year season, and basically you go back to sanctionals, but the sanctionals are a little bit more spread out. Each athlete that is considered a pro would basically have to compete in 5 competitions. And then your total scoring from those 5 competitions determine whether you get to go to the games, right? So if you do poorly in one event, but you do really well in another, like there's a point system that works there. And the idea would be that somehow CrossFit would get a TV deal with ESPN or whatever, and then you would spread that money across all 300 athletes. Like, let's say ESPN bought the CrossFit deal for $20 million. Like, athlete 1 through 20 get the biggest chunk.
Yeah, that's
20
fair.
through 50 get another chunk. And obviously you make less money the lower ranked you are.
Yeah.
But that would be one way where you could have the athletes not compete so often to where it stunts their development. You could be giving them more opportunities to get on stage and compete at these televised events to where now they're seen more so they can get more sponsorships and such. And then you have the money spread out based on performance as it should be. So I don't think it should be just because you're pro, you get the
Absolutely
same amount
not.
as the person who's first, right? Like
No.
that person
I don't believe in
deserves
socialism.
to make more money. Yeah,
I don't believe in
exactly.
socialism. Period.
Right. So based on your performance, the pit will determine how much money you make. But again, that's a very drastic change from what we're going through. I like the season the way it is. I don't want to see change for 5 years. And if there is change, I want like a 3-year warning that the change is coming, so I can prepare myself.
Okay.
I'm gonna get like 3 weeks probably.
If that's gonna, the rule book's gonna come out the night before. All right, guys, we're starting tomorrow.
No, I honestly believe that like we're in better hands now.
I do
and
too.
like we're headed in the right direction. I think there's going to be better structure, and I think this current system is going to stick around for at least 3 to 4 years before we see some changes.
Yeah, I do, and I've said this on here. I do like the current structure. My one qualm, if you will, is, and I've said this from the beginning, is just the professionalization. Excuse me, the professionalization of the sport, and I think that really can be solved with going to. I mean, honestly, that was one of the most elegant solutions that I've heard. And I've heard a lot of different people talk about a lot of different things and a lot of different ways of going about it. But it's kind of what I just said earlier. It's like you have to lessen the CrossFit Games, whether that's every other year, whether that's more things that also have that same notoriety or prize purse. Like, it can't be just that, because what's happening is then everybody wants to be that. Let me explain. Now you have these, we'll call them regional or local competitions, not to be confused with regionals back in the day, that are doing these 2 and 3 day competitions. Because why? Because they can. Because that's what the CrossFit Games does. Because that's what these athletes want to do. Because that's what they see the top elite level athletes doing, right? Because the reality is there's such a disparagement between the people that are doing it top 40 and everybody else, right? And we're already at this point where it's the select few that can do it. The sport self-selects. And I'm good with that, because it's like, Joe Blow can't just make it to the NBA. So why should CrossFit be any different? But athlete number, we'll just take the semifinal group. Athlete number 119 ain't making shit. And if you're athlete 119, I'm sorry. But like athlete 120, James Sprague, right? There you go. Here's a really good example. Now, that kid's doing something. All right. I saw he just got signed by WIT. W-I-T. I don't even know what that stands for.
Whatever it takes. Come on.
Whatever
man.
it takes. Come on. You can't be on a CrossFit podcast, not no freaking WIT.
Oh, my
Unbelievable.
God.
Outcast. WIT. Unbelievable. He's crushing it. Absolutely crushing it. He, I would argue, probably makes more money than the no-name person that was like next to him at semifinals, and say he plays worse, right? But it goes back to your point of you got to be marketable. He's super freaking marketable. All right. Great personality, great attitude, great work ethic. I mean, love the kid. Freaking awesome. I texted him right away. I was like, dude, I'm so pumped for you. Anyways, the point is this, is that if we went to a pro card situation, if we went to a collection of points that got you to the CrossFit Games, I think it would actually allow for more longevity in the sport. I think it would allow for people to actually be better. I think it would give people an opportunity to actually have an off season, because I would argue that, and look, I've been critical too of people, for example, like Haley Adams, it's, for example, like just needs to get stronger, but, is probably also balancing, like, I also need to make money and compete,
I don't think she
Maybe.
needs to get stronger.
Oh, pause. We're gonna come back to that. Circle that on the yellow sheet. But I think to some extent these athletes go, man, I just have to compete. Like, I've got to be able to get out there, whether it's sponsorship deals, whether it's like, however these deals are structured. Like, it's almost like, hey, I kind of have to do it. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of this, so that what you're saying, so that people can actually have longevity in the sport. Do you agree, disagree?
I think so. Going back to your first point, I think the local comps doing 2 to 3 day competitions is actually great, right? Like, when you're playing basketball and you're trying to get better at basketball, you don't get to play on a shorter goal because you're not ready for the full goal, or your ball isn't smaller so that you can learn how to dribble and shoot better. Like, you play with the same ball that the pros do, or a double rim, which is impossible to shoot on. So I like those 3-day competitions, but I think the biggest thing is making sure that athletes know what's best for them. And some athletes need to compete a lot, and then others need to develop a little bit more.
Give an example just for people listening so they can kind of understand maybe what camp they're in.
Yeah, so an athlete that would need to compete more is one that is very young, has the capacity and the potential, but doesn't have the experience with competing, right? Like, competition is more mental than physical, right? Like, how you handle the ups and downs, how you mentally prepare, your process, how do you warm up, how do you cool down, like all those things. And that takes like practice that you can't get in training. So like, I would put in that gap, like, athletes that have been doing CrossFit for like 3 or 4 years and they're looking to like make that next step. The best thing you can do is compete more, because that's going to help you get better when you get to the big competition that matters. If you're an athlete that would like need an off season, is somebody like Haley Adams is not a good example, because as much strength as she does, she's probably not going to get that much stronger, and she doesn't need to. Like, she does not need to get stronger. She is strong enough to make it to the games every year and to get top 10 at the games consistently, right? And I don't know how much strength Haley Adams already does, but I met her in 2018. She was snatching 180, and I think at the games this year she snatched 180, right? Like 185, sorry. So that's 3 years later, and she is way fitter than she was then, right? Now imagine if she spent all that time trying to get stronger. But a good example is someone who's, I'll use one of my athletes, Avery. Avery just got out of the teen division. She's looking to make it to the next stage, which for her is semis, and she has a good chance to make it there. But she's going to take the whole year and get stronger, because she has the potential to get stronger, and then see where she's at after a year of strength training.
And that is the age-old question, my friend. How strong is strong enough? And we've talked about it a lot. And you obviously sent me speaking of James, it was a video that James was moderating. And this was my favorite part. He said, most coaches would agree that, like, you got to have great capacity, great muscle endurance. And he basically just says, yet they don't have the balls enough to be able to take A1, A2, B1, B2 away and go get after building a world-class engine. building world-class capacity. I found that to be, I found that to be so interesting because most people, when they think about it, myself included, you see and you go, man, the guys at the top, like you got to, for a guy, for example, man, I got to be able to hit like 275. It's like, okay, well, like on a snatch, for example. Okay, well, yeah. The guys at the games are able to hit that weight. But then there are also guys and gals that are not able to hit those types of weights, yet make it there because of world-class capacity. And so it begs the question, Ben, when does an athlete kind of say, or coach, because I'm sure there could be coaches listening to this as well, is how do I know where to spend my time? Because just as you just said, Haley Adams isn't a good example because she, you met her several years ago. She was roughly around the same strength level, yet fast forward 3-4 years, her capacity is literally world class. It's arguably the top 3 in the sport, 5 in the sport. It's certainly top 5, just based off her performances. So how do you navigate that from a coach and an athlete perspective? Because it's like, man, you got to kind of have the balls or the ovaries to make that call and say, I'm going all in on this.
I think that's trial and error, right? Like, you don't know until you try to get stronger and then you don't. And then at a certain point, you have to like audit yourself and ask, is what I'm doing working? Right? Like you, as a coach, I know one thing. If I'm doing something for 5 months and the athlete isn't getting better, depending on like things like training age and basically like where they lie on the strength continuum, if they're not getting stronger, then I'm either going to change the method that I'm approaching their strength training, or I'm going to go, okay, this is useless. Maybe this isn't the right approach, right? But you have to try things. And that's really all coaching is trial and error. You try something. If it's working, you keep doing it. If it's not, you change it up.
So as we wrap up here, I want to kind of return to where we first started in this conversation, which is how hard, how tough, how crazy can the sport of CrossFit really get? And my question is, do you believe we're at the point, everyone talks about market corrections, if in economics, right? Eventually the market will correct itself. It's undeniably undefeated at correcting itself. And so my question to you is, are we at a point where both skill, load, capacity is at what would be considered its upper limits? Well, let's just really define it. We'll say volume, we'll say load, we'll say, capacity, skill, like is at its upper limits relative to athletic ability, drug-free athletic ability. Do you think that the market will make a correction? And by market, in this case, would be the programming or, something like that.
I don't think I think, yes, we are in the upper limits, but what you'll see is more athletes being able to do it, right? So like it's going to get a lot more dense. So I think it was in 1928, I forget his name, but he ran the first sub 4-minute mile.
Yes.
And
correct.
Now there's thousands of people running sub 4-minute miles. Right? So I think that's where the sport is going, is like, I don't think anybody's going to snatch 400 besides Anthony Davis, but I do think more people are going to be snatching 325 or 300, for example, which used to be like the number that athletes were kind of like shooting for. I think we're going to get to a point where everybody is snatching 300 and everybody's running a sub 5-minute mile. And that's just a matter of time. But what you'll see is that transition is only going to make the sport more competitive, because I don't think athletes are going to be, I don't think anyone's going to be raising the roof as much as like we've seen in the last 8 to 10 years.
As in the rate of adaptation will begin to catch up, just so I understand, the rate of adaptation will begin to catch up with the volume, with the load, with the volume, yet the ceiling necessarily isn't going to move too much higher. It's just everyone's going to kind of come up to the ceiling. Is I'm understanding
exactly
what you said?
Yeah, that's my thoughts on it. And it's just a matter of like, right now the sport is pretty like spread out as far as like what athletes can do. Like there's a huge gap between 1 through 10 and then 110 and 120. Like it's not even close. But you'll get to a point where athlete 110 and 120 can beat athlete 1 through 10 any given day. And I think that's good for the sport.
Yeah.
I think that makes it more, it'll make it more fun to watch, not knowing who's going to win. Like, it was awesome watching the men's competition this year. Like, before, you barely tuned in because it was like, Matt Fraser's going to win again. And you'd have 1 or 2 events where somebody would keep it close or beat him and he'd get second or third. And then you'd go back to watching the women's because you already knew Matt was going to win. But even the last 3 years of the games, it's like Mayhem is going to win, Tia, and then Matt Fraser. And you could call that a safe bet.
Yeah.
And to me, that made the sport not fun to watch. But now, if you don't know who's going to win, that's why you tune in. Like, you don't watch something you already know the result to.
It's like a movie you've already seen.
Exactly.
Oh. Last question. Brian Friend last week said that he believes that, because we were on the games and champions, all that. Brian Friend said he believes that Justin Medeiros will be the first competitor in CrossFit Games history to win one, lose one, win one. And what I mean by that is first place, any other place the next year, and then win one. Do you agree?
I don't know, because I don't know who's beating him.
Wow. Okay. So you think he's going to repeat?
So what I look at, and there's like a trend to it, right? And I knew he was going to do well. But also talked a little shit about him before the games. But anyway, I knew he was going to do well whenever he ran with Matt Fraser on that hill run or that trail run.
Yeah. At the
right?
ranch,
So like there's a correlation, just like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, between the athletes that win the endurance event and then the strength event. If you have an athlete that can win those 2 events on the outside of like the strength endurance continuum, right? Like they're very polarized. Everything in the middle is gonna be good. They're strong enough and they're aerobic enough. So you have him snatching 300 pounds and he has like this huge capacity, right? Like there's very few athletes where you had them like on both ends of the spectrum where they could win the run and the strength event.
And not to mention he's young enough.
Exactly. So like you have the more seasoned athletes like Fellner, Fikowski, Noah Olson. Like I don't think that somehow they're going to get better than they've been.
Which is for them, and I don't want to take anything away. Like they specifically, Vellner and Fikowski have the top 5 place finishes that they've had consistently is really impressive. I mean, no other athlete has consistently, maybe BKG, maybe, I don't know the stats on that, but Vellner, but those two Canadians consistently have finished top 5. One of them has, at least. It's impressive, I think, to continually be like elite. Like, I mean, no, they're not winning, first, but it's still impressive. I mean, to go year after year after year after year after year, placing 3rd, 4th, or 5th. I mean, to me, that's worth. I mean, talking about, obviously it's not sexy because they're not the one holding the check and on the podium in that first place spot. However, I do think it's still impressive and again, worth noting. So,
dude, it's very impressive because you don't see that level of consistency often in the sport, right? And they've been consistent for a very long time. But it's like the age that CrossFit athletes peak at, that's been consistent. Like 26 to 29, it was the same with Matt, same with Rich, same with Tia. Like it's not changing. That's where you physically peak. I don't know how old they are, but I think they're a little bit past that or on their way out from that range.
Yeah. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time. For those that are listening, obviously Coach L is a wealth of knowledge. You too can find your own Coach L on Instagram @_coach. Is it _L?
Yes. Dude, I'm trying to buy the L handle from some Asian guy. He won't sell it to me. But I'm gonna keep harassing him.
How much did you offer him?
$1,000.
What? You offered him $1,000, he wouldn't sell it?
I know he's holding out. He barely posts. He has like 2 posts up. Barely uses it.
Oh my gosh. Come on. What a jackwagon.
I know.
Unbelievable. All right. Anyways, _coach_L_ is, if you want to connect with him. It'll be down in the show notes. You can click on that. It'll say connect with L. You can hit him up in the DMs. He'll respond to you, answer all of your CrossFit questions, answer all of your burning questions about how to get better at the sport. He's not a wizard, Harry, but he's pretty close to it. All right. We'll see all of you soon. Thanks for joining in. L, as always, it's a pleasure.
Thanks, Micah.
All right. See you later.
Thanks for listening to Brute Strength Podcast. As always, you can head over to brutestrengthtraining.com to connect with us and access the links and resources mentioned in this podcast. That's brutestrengthtraining.com for exclusive content and giveaways.